Yippee-ki-yay, it's ecology, my favorite. All right, so ecology is the study of the interactions occurring between organisms and their environment. And so when we talked about, last time when we talked about how in biology we like to have this hierarchical structure, we like to organize things in a way so that mentally we can process them. So ecology is this organism, this interaction with the organism and their environment. So that could be you in this classroom, would be an example of ecology, because you're interacting in the classroom. Now, ecology also studies location and the abundance, the number of species, either individually or collectively. So we look at the location and the effect there. So we have two different categories of, um, of ecology. We have abiotic and biotic. What does the prefix a mean? Not or without. Very good. So abiotic, these are the non-living environmental factors. So the environmental factors that are without life. And now it's important to note that they've never had life. So temperature, light, water, nutrients, soil, and wind, these are all types of abiotic factors. Biotic factors here are they possess life, or they did possess life. So if I say a dead leaf on the ground, it's still biotic because it was once living. And so this could be biotic factors are bacteria, protists, fungi, plants, animals. Those are all example of biotic factors. All right, so the levels of ecology, the structure of them. So we have, we're going small to large. So the smallest level would look at organismal level, and this is looking at the morphology. Morphology meaning the shape. And so the bodily structure. And when we move into classification, we're going to see that we're talking about, is it radial shape, bilateral, what is it with the shape? So we're going to describe it based on its shape, we're going to describe it based on its behavior, and the distribution of organisms, so where are they located. And obviously, when we look at the bodily differences, these are going to look very different between aquatic organisms, in other words, organisms that are in the water, terrestrial organisms, organisms on land, and flight organisms, so birds. So their morphology is going to be significantly different based on their location. The next level of ecology is population. So we have organismal, then population. Population looks at the abundance within a particular area. So we're at the same time and showing signs of reproduction. So organisms in the same time at the same place. The next level is community. So now we're looking at different species interacting. Where population here, we're looking at the same species. See, like in here, we are looking at the zebras. But here, we have in the levels of community, we have, at the community level, we have giraffes and we have zebras and whatever else would be, looks like there's something sneaking in back here. And so we have different organisms that make up the community. And we're looking at how those interact. So it's at this level we're looking at things like predation, competition, symbiosis. Predation meaning predator-prey, something feeding on something else, attacking something else. Competition, two things fighting over the same thing. And symbiosis, so you can have mutualism, commensalism, parasitism, and we'll look at those coming up. So we'll look at those different relationships there. All right, the next level is the ecosystem level. So we have organismal, population, community. Now we're at ecosystem, so we're getting even larger. Now what we're doing is we're looking at the biotic factors interacting with the abiotic factors. So Here, we're going to talk about energy flow and this cycling of nutrients. So we're looking at the movement of where does the energy flow and how do the nutrients cycle. So the carbon cycle and the oxygen cycle and all of those things, because we're looking at the biotic and abiotic factors. So if you look here, we would be talking about, in this sense, the biotic factors, the fish, interacting with the water, which is abiotic, or the biotic factors here of the coral reef interacting with the water, or interacting with the soil, or the temperature of the water. So all of those things are their abiotic and biotic factors interacting with each other at the ecosystem level. Then we move to the landscape level. And this looks at the arrangement of the ecosystems within a given area. And so here you're looking at the mountainscapes and the seascapes. So here we have this comparison here. We have the seascape, we have the mountains here. But as you go up this mountain, the whole environment's going to change. The types of the vegetation, the types of animals, these are all going to change as you go up in altitude or as you come down. You're going to have completely different ecosystems in that. The Rocky Mountains are a great example. You're going from plush pastures to wooded, which is hard and pine. And then you move up to pine and then snowcap as you go all the way up. And so you have these completely different ecosystems as you move along in the landscape. And then finally we have the biosphere. And so that is the largest of the levels of ecology. And this looks at the global interactions between the biotic and abiotic factors. So remember them in this order. So maybe remember O, P, C, E, L, B. And come up with some kind of mnemonic device to remember those, and then tell me what yours is, and then I'll know that you watch these videos. Yahoo! All right. The next part that we're going to talk about is the biogeography. So just tear that word apart. Bio, life, geo, earth. So where are things located? The distribution of species and their distribution patterns that are seen within a particular area, as well as the species richness. How many, what are the numbers in that area? So when we look here, and we're using this example, the biogeography of kangaroos, we can look at this chart right here and see, okay, if we want to see where there's greater than 20 kangaroos, like right here, then we're going to come right down here and we're going to see that in New South Wales, that's where we've got a great distribution of kangaroos. All right. All right. Okay, so we'll talk about the difference between, with this biogeography, we're looking at normal species versus transplant species. Let's see, these are all transplants. So the normal species is the species that's natural, that has evolved into that defined area. So we also refer to this, so you want to put normal species, also known as indigenous or native. So those words all mean the same thing. They're indigenous, they're native to that area, and so that's the normal species. A transplant is a species from another area that's living in a foreign environment. So if you were born in Alabama, then you would be a normal species here because you're from this area. I would be considered a transplant because I'm not from here. I was living in another area and I moved here, so I'm considered a transplant. There's certain ones that there are accidental transplants. Zebra mussels are a great example of this. These are they just take over an area. Fire ants, kudzu's another type of transplant. Now, kudzu was actually purposeful. I mean, there's multiple stories as to where the kudzu came from, but it was intentionally brought here, and it has taken over. Now, when I first moved here, I thought kudzu was beautiful. I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful, and then people said it destroys everything in its path. Oh, well, not so much. Another transplant, this is an accidental one, but the fire ants. Look at the fire ant migration here. So this is where it started, was in Mobile, and look, it's moved all out here. So you have fire ants all over the place here. And if you look at, let me get this off the screen. If you look at this, look at those bites. They're terrible. I stepped in a fire ant nest before, and they just, I just had 25 bites in like, 3 seconds or something. Um, Now I asked what would be I needed some remedy because my foot was on fire. It was awful. It was just burning, and ant bites are the worst. And a friend of mine, I put on Facebook, she said, come to my house immediately. She had mixed up a paste of meat tenderizer and, meat tenderizer and water, made it into a paste. I slathered it on my foot. The pain went away, the itching. And if I had any itching that came back later, I just put a little bit more on, and that was it. So fabulous treatment right there. Meat tenderizer, make it into a little paste. The another purposeful transplant, human purposeful transplant, was the African killer honeybees. Again, has not worked out so good for us. I guess that's it for this one, and we'll move on to abiotic factors on the next one.